In ancient times, the world trembled. Empires expanded through violence. Armies marched across lands. Nations prepared for war. Fear was not unusual. It was expected. And in the middle of this tension, God spoke. Families lived with uncertainty. Mothers held their children tightly. Fathers watched the horizon. Every rumor of invasion carried weight. The future felt unstable. But history shows us something powerful. It is often in the darkest moments that God reveals his brightest promises. Jerusalem stood surrounded by uncertainty. Political alliances shifted. Enemies gathered strength. The people wondered, would their nation survive? It was during this fragile time that a prophet emerged. His name was Isaiah, called by God to speak not only to his generation, but to generations far beyond his own. He did not bring military strategy. He brought a vision of peace. Isaiah saw something extraordinary, not more war, not more destruction, but a future transformed by God himself. In chapter 2 of the book of Isaiah, he describes what he saw, a time when the mountain of the Lord would be established above all others, a time when nations would come together, not to fight, but to seek God. Isaiah declares, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established. This mountain symbolized God's authority, not an earthly kingdom built on force, but a spiritual kingdom built on truth, and the nations would flow toward it. People from every nation walking together, not as enemies, but as seekers of peace. Instead of preparing for battle, they prepare for worship. Instead of defending borders, they seek understanding. This was radical. This was revolutionary. Then comes one of the most powerful lines in Scripture. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, weapons, reshaped, metal once designed to harm, reformed to cultivate life, the tools of war transformed into tools of provision. Isaiah continues, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Imagine a world where children are no longer trained for battle, where strategy meetings are no longer about conquest, where peace is not temporary, but permanent. The battlefield becomes farmland. The ground once stained by conflict now produces harvest. Fear gives way to security. Anxiety gives way to hope. This is not merely political peace. This is spiritual transformation. War is something humanity studies. We train for it, we prepare for it, we anticipate it. But Isaiah sees a future where war is no longer learned, because hearts have changed. And that is the key. Peace begins in the heart. Later in the same book, Isaiah reveals more. For unto us a child is born, and he shall be called Prince of Peace. This prophecy shifts from a vision to a person. Christians believe this points to Jesus, not a conqueror with an army, but a king who conquers hearts. Jesus did not come with swords. He came with forgiveness. He taught love for enemies. He demonstrated mercy over revenge. His kingdom does not expand through violence. It expands through transformation. Real peace does not begin in treaties. It begins when pride becomes humility, when hatred becomes forgiveness, when fear becomes trust. This is the deeper meaning of Isaiah's prophecy. God does not simply remove weapons. He renews hearts. Isaiah's vision is ultimately about worship. Nations gathered not around power, but around God. Peace flows from alignment with Him. Unity flows from surrender to Him. This is not human achievement. It is divine intervention. The Bible paints a picture of a future where peace fills the earth. No more destruction. No more endless conflict. History is not moving toward chaos. It is moving toward restoration. From a heavenly perspective, God sees the full story. He sees beyond today's headlines, beyond present tensions. The prophecy of peace reminds us, God's plan is not temporary calm. It is eternal peace. The prophecy of peace is both a promise and an invitation, a promise that one day war will cease, and an invitation to live as peacemakers now. When nations shake, when fear rises. Remember this, the final chapter has already been written. Swords will become plowshares, war will give way to worship, and peace will reign.